to the bottom. Here comes Giuseppe. They make contact. They touch once, twice, 3 times.
Oh, trouble! Oh, no, Rocky into the wall. Big crash front straightaway. Huge crash coming into the tri-oval. No, Rocky up and into the air.
They're beating and banging. Burn on the bottom. Cosman up top.
Kaufman, I think. No! Breyer by 1/1000th of a second. Joseph now at the line. Thunhorse pulls the win out at the stripe. Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here? Here comes the canvas. Get your foot there. He got it. He's got it. He's got it. Canvas is going to win.
Hello everybody, we're across the pond in the UK here at Silverstone, round 7 of 8 for the SimCAR Penguin RC Simulation Grand Am Championship. And it's been a tight one so far. The championship is just about locked up, but the race has been pretty close throughout. We've got Blake Reynolds, who's already locked up the prototype championship, and Ray Kingsbury is pretty close to locking up in the GT3s, but we'll have to wait and see how things go. I'm Chad Irvine. Here with me in the booth is Sean Butler. Got Zach Johnson here pushing the buttons and making everything look as beautiful as it does. But Sean, this is a track that's pretty familiar to most racers, especially those familiar with the one, and it's going to make for some interesting racing here tonight.
Yeah, one of the original iRacing tracks. So, I mean, if you signed up for the sim, this is probably one of the first road courses you raced on, and it's gone through a bit of an update over the years. This is the most current version of Silverstone with the updated turns, repave, and all that. So these guys should know their way around here quite well in terms of this race. I'm looking around, and Spencer Ray is in the inside wall. But it should be a fun race tonight. You know, the last couple of races have been very good, very interesting, to say the least. We've had a lot of storylines coming into this one as the season winds down, and we're only going to add another chapter here tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun to watch. Taylor Carroll currently on provisional pole to 157.6, almost a full second ahead of the next driver of Matthew Powers. So Taylor Carroll is just absolutely flying out there right now. As he gets set, Blake Reynolds just went to P2 with the 158.1, so close to the end of the session here for everybody. Just over a minute left. They'll have the opportunity to finish the laps that they're on, I think, and that's going to be just about it. But overall, I can't wait to see what these drivers have in store for us tonight. Taking a look over at the points championship currently in the GT3s, it's Ray Kingsbury who's got 103-point lead over Michael Gonzalez coming in, and I believe Gonzalez is not going to be here tonight. So I think that's going to seal up the championship for Ray Kingsbury as long as he starts the feature. So that should be just about that done and dusted, fortunately. But there is still the AM category championship. Chris Wetz currently leads that by 4 points over Brock Quinn. Wetz is here. Is Quinn here? Yes, he is as well. Both of them going to be starting pretty far down in the lineup as we wrap up qualifying here. Both of them starting probably closer towards the back as we get set for the sprint race. And I think it all comes down to just who can do better in the feature. Still have one more round remaining after this. That's going to be in 2 weeks' time. And that race will be coming to you from Sebring. And God, I hate that course.
Wow. Just tell us how you really feel, Chad.
Hey, you know what? I told you. It's I'm not good at courses where I just hit tires all the time because it's right up against the track. But no, Sebring is definitely an interesting track to wrap up the series at. You know, knowing how these guys like to run their races, I wouldn't be surprised if it finishes under the lights. They used to run every season where they'd finish somewhere over the light, under the lights, whether it was at Daytona or behind the lights of the big screens at Indy. These guys like to finish in the dark at the championship round, so we'll have to see, because that golden hour just looks beautiful.
And it should be worth noting, too, that after this season, the Grand Am Series is finished, SimCAR will be actually putting on a Grand National Series on the oval side of things, and there'll be a couple road courses mixed in that schedule, too, but that's starting up on November 11th, so there'll be a little bit of a break between the Grand Am Series and that, but if you guys are interested in that. There's that's running the Xfinity cars, the NASCAR Xfinity cars. On that should be a good time. I'm signed up for it. I think Chad is too. He's going to try his hand at that.
I'm gonna crash all the time. Let's do it.
He's going to crash every single week, but it should be a good time in that as well. So if we'll have more racing coming your way after this, but right now we have our starting grid to go through, and you see front row there, Taylor Carroll and newly retired eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver Blake Reynolds will make up the first 2 spots. In row 2, Matthew Powers, Nate Stewart. Good to see Nate back here. Xavier Ragster, Tommy Joe Valenzuela in row 3. John, I'm going to say this wrong again because he corrected us last week, but it's John Marshbanks in the 30. And Ray Kingsbury in the 25. And Jonathan Taylor and Justin Lance Nasir will make up the 007.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, the lead driver in the AM category. Then we jump down to more drivers in the AM class with Brian Son and Marwan Mofta on row 6, Chris Wetz and Matt Kingsbury, Kevin Fanning and Robert Lowry, followed by Spencer Ray. Brock Quinn, Jake Robichaux, and Gary Freeman wrap up row number 10.
And as we work our way down to the final driver here, Justin Robichaux in the 93 makes up the 21st and final starting spot. And for those of you scoring at home, we are going to have a guess who gets the turn names wrong the most in this race. Chad and I were practicing, and we are not prepared.
I know that there are corner names to most of these, but I couldn't tell you which one is which. I got Meggett's and Beckett's down, but other than that, it's all a toss-up for me.
All right, let's go through them together. This is Abbey, turn 1, they're coming up to, and they're going to be going into the Farm Curve and Village. This is here we go. Here comes.
This is Village.
This is Village, and this is the Loop. Turn 4. They're coming up to.
They got entry going down into the Wellington Straight. Wellington Straight is one of those where it's not a corner, but it still somehow has a name. There's not very many straightaways that have names to them.
We're learning together.
You got Brooklands here. I know this one. I've definitely heard the F1 commentator say this one too many times. And yeah, Brooklands, left field. A lot of these corners, you hear the names and you can kind of picture them, but to me, we're just out here to have fun. So you got these guys now working their way up through left field, and then car around. Is that Brian Son, I believe? No, it is not. I'm trying to figure out who that is around. Is that Ray Kingsbury?
That is Brock Quinn in the 005.
Brock Quinn.
There he is. Now they're coming up to your spot, the only spot you know of, Maggots and Beckett's. They're coming up to it. Here they go. There's Maggots. And now they're going through Beckett's.
Now down through the Hangar Straight, and that name is very fitting.
Before that, turn 14, right out of Beckett's was Chapel.
Now down the Hangar Straight, and this Hangar Straight, the name is very fitting because it used to be an airfield, and there was a hangar where this straightaway used to be. So a lot of these apparently used to fit. So now they go through Stowe. And then the final couple of corners, and then the club corner, the final turn. And
these corners are 16 and 17. They're not named for some reason, but turn 18 is. So they Silverstone officials have to get on finishing the naming of each corner of this circuit.
Now, what are your thoughts, Sean? Do we need to are you more of a corner name or a corner number kind of person?
I'm more of a corner number person. I have a hard enough time memorizing course, turn numbers, and names as it is. So it's either one I'm not good at whatsoever.
I'm with you. The biggest thing for me in terms of corner numbers, especially on road courses, is if somebody tells me, "Oh, it's turn 14," and I know it's a 17-turn course, like, oh, it's close to the end of the lap. But here, if they're going through Stowe, I was like, okay, is that turn 7, turn 15, turn 28? I couldn't tell you, but these guys doing their best out there, running pretty smoothly so far. We had that one spin earlier from Brock Quinn. Otherwise, though, still Taylor Carroll up to a half-second lead. Let's take a look here at the replay. I believe this is going to be the opening lap. Maybe some contact there. There's a half spin up in front, and that's what sent that Penguin RC car around.
We have more trouble back live. The 92 of Jake Robichaux just had a moment. Coming through Brooklands in turn 6. That was another car off the track there. You see.
How did he get, looking at the replay though, how did he get that through that one clean? That was a surprising way for the 005 to get through here. And now we're looking further back up in the field. This is the Robichaux spin, I believe.
A little lazy spin there.
Just a lazy half spin. He kept it under him.
Good job by producer Zach.
And you can tell, it looks like it. You see the headlights are on, but the sun is getting kind of low. I mean, it looks like it's getting darker and darker as the session goes on. Let's check the time here in the sim. Yeah, it's currently 3:01 on the realistic date. So it is November 3rd in sim, 3 o'clock. Local time, virtual standard time is our friends over GSRC would say. They say virtual standard time. Virtual time in sim, 3:01, and it's not dark, but it's getting darker.
Back up front, you see our two leaders, Blake Reynolds in the front Porsche, then Taylor Carroll in the 420. Then Nate Stewart with the first BMW, that hulking, massive thing of a vehicle behind these guys. A little bit of a kick up of dust behind. 2
Porsches, 2 BMWs, and a Lambo in the top 5. Then you got 2 more Porsches, and then 2 Mercedes that are wrapping up the top 9. I was surprised to see that Reynolds got by Carroll, because Carroll was so much quicker than everybody else in qualifying. I wonder maybe if that's a strategic decision somehow from Carroll. I don't think that's going to work here in the 15-minute sprint or 20-minute sprint. We got 20-minute sprint and then a 1-hour-long feature race to get the event wrapped up.
Looking further on back here, not very many battles happening throughout this field. Very spread out. I think the closest, I guess, encounter is going to be up for the 4th spot. Tommy Joe Valenzuela, Matthew Powers, you see on your screen right now. Valenzuela in the Porsche, Powers in the BMW. So Tommy Joe's going to get that move done, it looks like. And he does.
Fighting around the outside, thought about it through Beckett's, but could not get the move done. They worked their way down the hanger straight, and there you see the serpentine just a little bit like we're familiar with from IndyCar, and they worked their way towards Stowe, but still no move. Maybe trying to power around the outside. Oh, that's just a power move there.
Excellent job through there. So that was a very tough move to Stowe. Now they're coming down through Vale and then turn 16 and 17. And I got to say, Tommy Joe's looking pretty strong in the sprint race.
Yeah, I mean, he's shown pressure the entire way through, trying to work his way up, pick up any spots he can. He's got quite the gap out in front. Let's check the timing and scoring. He's got 4.5 seconds already up the track to Taylor Carroll. So those front two have just checked out. Signed, sealed, delivered, they're gone.
Well, good thing this is only the sprint race and not the main event, or else these two would just be fighting for it the whole entire time. This is a good race to watch, though. Pretty much from 2nd or 3rd on back, I should say. They are all just single file. A little bit of a gap between Matthew Powers and Nate Stewart for 4th and 5th here. But these guys pretty much all single file as they make their way down the Wellington Straight.
Yeah, between the Wellington Straight, the Hamilton Straight, the Hanger Straight, and even the straightaway between Woodcut and the Cups, you can definitely find a way to draft your way around this track. And it kind of reminds me a lot of racing that we'll see at the Indianapolis road course, where you're just draft locked most of the lap because you're so flat out. You have to just tuck in the slipstream and pray that you can get close to somebody.
What if the IndyCars ran here? I think they put on a pretty good race. The good thing about this track, it's wide enough and it's got a lot of, different types of corners. It's got sweepers, technical corners, high-speed corners. You can run pretty much anything here and it'll be a really good race.
Yeah, IndyCar did race in the UK, but it wasn't here at Silverstone. They raced at Brands Hatch, and they had their own kind of custom layout that worked actually pretty well, not only in IndyCars, but I've raced it in GT cars on the iRacing service, and that track works pretty well all around. But the IndyCars here, I think, would put on a fantastic show. Of course, we've seen it, the single-seaters with the Formula 1 and Formula 2 and stuff over the years, but I think the IndyCar here would just work phenomenally.
Had some trouble earlier, a little bit ago. Spencer Ray in the 6th through Cops got very loose on the exit. He had a little bit of a lazy spin and took it onto the pit access road. Didn't hit anything. But he's got himself mired back in 18th now, and he's actually going to pull it off the track. So,
yeah, I was like, you mentioned pulling off the track. He is disconnected from the session, so I don't know if he's going to be here the rest of the night. 3 drivers still, though, in the pits as well. That's Gary Freeman, Brock Quinn, and Kevin Fanning. They are all in or have been in the pits at one point or another. So those are they're struggling for the night. Car around Tommy Joe. No.
We were just talking about him, how good of a job he was doing. That was. We need to get a replay of this at some point. It looks like through Abby just lost it and then corrected it, and then he swung it through farm curb and lost it. Oh boy. We'll add that one to producer Zach's list of replays we need to get.
Still not quite to halfway through, but we'll take a look at the replay once again. This is Tommy Joe, the second car in line. And as he goes through, Maggots just lost the back end, could not save it. Coming to Beckett's, and unfortunately, the biggest thing for him is he didn't lock the brakes up right away, so he lost maybe a little more time than necessary. But he continues on, no harm, no foul to the car. And then that's Brian's son that goes around here in the 03.
Just recently happened. I was about to bring that up to Zach, but he is on it. So these guys are, I want to say they're testing out, as we have another one. Tommy Joe's around again in the 21.
Now that's a 77 of Jonathan Taylor. Yep.
Cops, Tommy Joe Valenzuela's around in Cops right now. This is the most recent. Wow. It's a hard hit. I think he might be done for the sprint race. He is crawling down the straightaway right now. That's live. This is live. He's spinning right now live. Yeah, the rear is definitely broken on that car. Something is an issue, and there he goes. And we got another one around. Brock Quinn is around in the 005. What are all these self spins happening? There he is.
And I think that part of that just plays into the nature of this track. It's such a flat course that there's just not much camber, not much banking to these corners, to where you're trying to take it as flat out as possible. Maybe a slight lift, but if you push too hard, it's going to lose the back end. And unfortunately, that it's not comparable to, say, a lot of the ovals, or not even ovals, a lot of the road courses here in the States, where they kind of camber the corners, kind of bank them in just even the slightest amount to try to help you out when you get through the corners.
Jonathan Taylor typed in over driver's chat. He said ridiculous. So I think he's kind of unhappy. We mentioned this last time, Chad, as well, but how about Robert Lowry in that 70? Only 4 GT in the field. That is a beautiful looking car.
I mean, it always is, especially when you can get the lone, be the one unique outlier in the corner. Yeah, just this car sounds beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Could run this car a lot. If I was out there, I'd probably be running that car with him.
Yeah, you're riding on board, looking out at the back bumper of Matt Kingsbury, and that's the Audi Sport Slovakia Last Lap Motorsports machine there for Matt, and he's doing everything he can. And the one thing that's kind of unique, I think, to today's race is you look at the top 9, they're all the pro class drivers there with the blue, driver color in the timing scoring screen. Top 9 all are the pro class, and you got Marwan Mafta in 10th in the 191. Typically, we see 1 or 2 drivers kind of work their way up into the top 5. We're just not seeing that here so far in the sprint.
I think everyone's still kind of feeling out, where the limits are in these cars. That's why we're seeing so many self spins in this. But I think everybody's calmed down. We're under 10 minutes left now, under 8 officially. So we're just going to calm down a little bit and get to the main event here as we see more battles happening throughout the track now. You saw a little bit further back, you saw Marwan Mafta and Chris Wetz back there. And we're looking up through here. And these cars just get so loose easily. This is Matthew Powers and John Marshbanks battling it out for 4th, and you got Nate Stewart just ahead of them in 3rd.
Yeah, you talked about Marwan Mafta kind of just holding on to that spot from Chris Wetz, and I think the biggest thing for Marwan is, just from knowing him, talking to him over the last couple months or whatever, knowing him on the iRacing services, this is one of those tracks he's comfortable with, just knowing him from he's more of a rallycross driver. He's more of the off-road. He runs the dirt. He runs the jumps. And, coming over to the roadside, you get to these more common tracks, whether it's here at Silverstone or you go to, Road America. It's one of those tracks where most of the drivers know it. You're more comfortable here, and you kind of just get the feel for it. It's the same with oval side drivers, whether it's obviously the flat-out tracks like Daytona, or you go to say, Charlotte, where you can just kind of easily learn those spots early on in your iRacing career and feel it out from there.
Had another issue a little bit ago. Jonathan Taylor in the 77 in turn 4, the looped it around by himself. So that's another self-spin we can add to the list. There you see Jonathan. He was able to keep it going. Didn't hit anything. So he's able to keep that thing going. Another one of the pro drivers, or AM drivers, I should say. But he's definitely going to be in the mix at the end of this thing. And the AM class might be the class to watch in this race. We were talking about Marwan Mafta, Chris Wetz. Justin Robichaux is right there with them as well. So we could have a very close battle for that victory tonight. So that's something you definitely have to keep an eye on as this race goes along.
I don't know what Blake Reynolds has found, but he's already 7 seconds ahead of Taylor Carroll, and we're only 12 minutes or 14 minutes into this race. And the thing there is, Taylor Carroll was almost a second faster than the field in qualifying. So I don't know what Blake has found. Maybe he put some of that Michael Waltrip Racing jet fuel in the tank or something. But man, he is just absolutely flown away with this one.
Well, listen, he doesn't have to test 24/7 for the Coke Series race every week. Now he's a free man right now, so he can put a little bit more time into getting this car dialed in and getting his strategy down. So we've seen it all season, so it's definitely not a good look for Blake Reynolds. It's not a good sign for these drivers that Blake is 100% focused on this race, but he's showing right now why he is the guy to beat and has been that all season.
Yeah, top 9 still all the pro class. The only one really, a couple close battles up in there, but then you drop down to the AM category you're talking about. That might be the battle to watch. Of course, you got Spencer Wright, who has unfortunately dropped out of the event, but further down back, Marwan Mafta, Chris Wetz, they're both within a couple tenths of each other. Lance Nasir right up there as well. I mean, you got plenty of battles all throughout this field, and I think that, it's good fun to watch. I wonder what Lance Nasir is going to be able to do once we get to the feature, because he's currently back in 12th, but he's going to make up a bunch of ground just once we get to that get to the reset for the sprint or for the feature, and these guys going to just settle themselves out, have some fun out there.
A little bit of a lull in the action here, just under 5 minutes remaining here in the sprint race. Then we're getting set for an hour's worth of racing in the main event as we got another battle happening here. It looks like we got Ray Kingsbury, and Ragster.
Yeah, these guys, they've known each other for years on the iRacing servers. I know Savian, at one point, I remember watching him race for a championship about 3 years ago. He broke his arm in a go-karting accident and ended up racing at Daytona in a GT3, basically with one hand. As we got a car around. Oh, that's the only Ford in the field.
It's Robert Lowry.
But going back to the battle with Ragster, he's a kart racer in the real world, and he tried to take it to the sim. He broke his arm in a kart race on I think it was on like Thursday before. About a week later, on painkillers, people were thinking, oh, he's not going to be able to race. He was in practice, he was spinning, he couldn't make the hairpin at Long Beach, and somehow he made it work. So he's a very dedicated driver there in the 91 for Savian Ragster, and he's doing his best to get back by Ray Kingsbury, who just overtook him.
I mean this in the nicest way possible. He's also crazy. If he's going to try to run a race at Daytona on one arm, that is definitely tough to do. So I commend him big time for that. Definitely not an easy task, especially with a broken arm, a broken anything.
By the way, it wasn't Daytona. It was Long Beach on the road course. So he was trying to make the hairpin. He was telling drivers he had to use other hand, reach back around and just get full lock with this wheel with the opposite hand. And it was, I did it, but he made it work. I think he was dumping the clutch at one point there, but either way, he's a great driver. So
definitely can do a lot better with one arm than I could at Long Beach, that's for sure. And plus he
could do better with one than we could do with two.
The pain he must have been in was not comfortable either. So that sounds like a very long race for all the wrong reasons for him.
Yeah, for sure. And that was under the similar format to this thing. Back then it was a 15 and a 45 instead of a 20 and a full hour. But still, I mean, he's dedicated to the craft, and he keeps things rolling the right direction for him. Is unfortunately he's lost that spot to Ray, but he's still got a considerable gap back to Matt Kingsbury. He's got 5 seconds back to 8th place. So still the top 8 all pro class drivers. The battle For the AM category, unfortunately for Marwan, has gone to Chris Wetz for the time being, and I think Marwan must have made a mistake because he's now a second and a half or so behind Chris Wetz. So 9th and 10th overall, but that's first and second in the AM class.
Am I seeing things on Jonathan Taylor's right front because it's all pushed in on my screen? I don't know if Zach can tell on his. It looks fine on his, but I'm just wondering. That's the same damage that I'm seeing that he had back at Fuji that he was complaining a lot about. Can't really see it as we're sifting through the camera. Look at the work he has to put in to keep that car going straight off the corners.
Yeah, you can definitely see on the rear chase cam there's definitely some damage to that right front. Maybe you can see it here. The headlight might obscure it, but there's definitely some damage to that right front splitter. I'm not sure when he picked it up, but overall, I think that. Let's see here. I'm gonna go back and watch the replay. Oh, he was in some contact. He was definitely involved with Marwan Mafta. Yes, the incident with Mafta, so that's what probably gave Wetz the lead is what gave Jonathan Taylor the damage. So Mafta did a half spin just in front of Jonathan Taylor, and unfortunately Taylor was involved and collected him.
Well, like I said, at least they're getting it out of the way in the sprint race and not the main event, so glass half full, I suppose.
Yeah, it was back on lap 5 for these guys that he collected that damage, and fortunately enough, I think that he's going to be able to get away with it and not lose too many positions. He's currently running 3rd in the M class. Lance Nasir, the lone driver there, and just outside the top 10. He's trying to work his way back up to his pro category drivers, but can't do so for now. Chris Wetz right on the back, though, of Matt Kingsbury. He's made up considerable time trying to fight his way back, and Chris Wetz trying to get any position he can.
Let's go ahead and call this one right now. And we're going to go ahead and do this because we need it. Blake?
I was dragged.
Yeah, you were. You're going to win the sprint race fairly easily. What the heck did you figure out in this thing?
Well, Sean, I got to thank Taylor Carroll for the setup. It's really unfortunate of him to give me the setup and then I pull away.
Wow.
But
He was
yeah.
He was almost a second faster than you in qualifying, and you pulled something out. Was there just something you didn't know about the track, or?
It might be dirty air, to be honest, because I was having trouble passing him, and I only passed because he made a mistake. So, who knows? My tires are kind of gone here. It's kind of evened out. Like, I'll run like one really good lap, and then I think they're running pretty consistent. So, we'll see here in the long run. Hopefully I can keep the tires on it here. My setup just tends to be a little...
You were a second and a half faster than Taylor last lap.
Well, that was the one good lap. And this lap's like a 59.3.
So I recently hinted on your retirement from the Coke series now. So how does it feel to be a free man after this past Tuesday?
A free man? Yeah, from my...
A freeman.
From my enslavement.
Can I call you Morgan for the rest of the night?
Morgan?
Morgan Freeman.
Oh,
You're a free man.
I'd say so. You pulled away, but you talked about, just burning your tires off. Do you think you kind of have to manage that maybe a little bit better once we get to the hour-long race?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of left side tire wear, especially left rear. It's just really tough with these higher speed corners, and these GT cars tend to be more forward downforced, or aeroplanes kind of forward. So we'll see. I think some other cars will handle it better. I think the BMW is more aero balanced than the Porsche, but the Porsche just has the raw speed right now in terms of the BOP. So we'll see.
Now, I've got to ask. You made the switch mid-season from the prototype here to the GT. What does that do for your driving?
For my driving, well, I've had to relearn the GT. Like last week, it kind of took me half the race to get up to it. Luckily, I was racing Parker White, so it's always good to have Parker White as a mouse to chase. So
That was fun. I feel like I kind of learned the Porsche pretty quickly. I've raced the car before in MTech last year, so yeah, I do know quite a bit about the car. Hasn't changed too much.
Well, hey, Blake, congratulations on the sprint race win, and best of luck to you in the future.
All right, thanks, guys.
That's Blake Reynolds, the winner of the sprint here at Silverstone. He, of course, took the victory almost, or just over 7 seconds over Taylor Carroll. They got Nate Stewart, John Marshbanks, and Matt Powers, Ray Kingsbury, Savian Ragster, and Matt Kingsbury. Then you get down to the game class where Chris Wetz and Marwan Mofta wrapped up the top 10, and you'll see the rest of the fields here on your screen. This is going to reflect, and we'll go over these results as well once we get to the start of the feature race. And I believe, so we will take a short break here and be back in just a matter of moments here after the warm-up. We'll have an hour-long feature race, features at the same track, and it's going to be a load of fun here from Silverstone. And back to the land of tea and crumpets. We are here for a 1-hour feature event. Just wrapping up the warm-up for these drivers. They're getting used to the full field load here at Silverstone. These drivers have been working their butts off to get themselves ready. Blake Reynolds, we talked to him a moment ago, and he just dominated that sprint race. I mean, he had a 7-second lead at the end of 20 minutes. So definitely a dominating performance from him. We'll have to wait and see what he can do here in the future.
He needs to run a slower car in this race. I would love to see him in like a Ford GT or something, just struggling along with the rest of the field in this one.
Back, story time, back when this league first started, Christian Challoner was a member of it. This was back during the previous ownership of the league. But he was a member of it, and he would literally switch his car to maybe the least popular every week, just to prove to everybody it's not the car, it's the driver. He would pick whatever would be the worst ranked car every single week, and he would just absolutely run away with it. So there's definitely setup hacks you can do, but he would run the iRacing baseline. So he would find ways to do everything he could to make the cars run well, and you can tell these cars have BOP'd pretty well. You can definitely have some fun out there no matter what you run.
And Christian Challoner, I'd say, is a pretty good racer. I think he was all right. when he was doing the league.
He was
Still is a great driver.
He's working his way on the Alien Challenge. I remember I used to watch him on Twitch just about every week trying to get wins in every different car knocked off. So he's working his way there, and he's definitely a talented guy. So he knows what he's doing out there. Getting set for the feature race. It's a 1-hour finale here, round 7 of 8 in the SimCAR series, and Blake Reynolds, as the winner of the sprint, takes the pole, followed by Taylor Carroll on the outside of row 1. You got Nate Stewart and John Marshbanks on row 2, Matt Powers and Ray Kingsbury, then Savian Ragser and Matt Kingsbury, Chris Wetz and Marwan Mafta, the front 2 AM-class drivers on row number 5.
Then the rest of the field will look like this. Jonathan Taylor, another AM driver, right behind the 2 leaders in the AM class. He'll roll off 11th. Robert Lowry in the GT will be in 12th. Justin Robichaux, Brian Son make up row 7. Jake Robichaux and Lance Nasir, row 8. Tommy Joe Valenzuela and Brock Quinn in row number 9. Row 10, Gary Freeman and Spencer Ray. And rounding out the field, Kevin Fanning. I don't believe the last 2 are in the field, so it looks like we're going to have a 19-car contest here in the main event.
So Kevin Fanning, it looks like, is actually here tonight.
He just gridded right after I said that.
He just gridded. Spencer Ray, however, is not. He did drop out of the field, so unfortunately, Spencer Ray not going to score many points tonight. Kevin Fanning going to try to make up as much ground as he possibly can and try to score some points. And of course, for these drivers, not only do they have the round or the championship points and the championship standings, but they also have the race points and the race money to deal with and try to make up. But there you see it, single file, just about front half the field. Somebody already spinning down towards the back, and that's Jake Robichaux. Jake spun it through club corner and unfortunately nosed it into the wall. We'll have to wait and see how his car is handling, because it looked like it might have been significant contact there.
Well, that is definitely not how you want to start a race. So everyone looks like they've gotten through clean so far. Very close quarters racing here for, it looks like, the 5th position. Matthew Powers, Ray Kingsbury, and Savian Ragster right there. To make their way through to the corners, Blake Reynolds has a fight for the lead on his hands. Taylor Carroll and Nate Stewart is right there. So everyone trying to get as much as they can on the start.
And I think that's going to be kind of the biggest thing for Blake. We talked about him. He was talking about his left side tire wear in that sprint. And once you get to the feature, you're not going to be able to push as hard. You have to make a pit stop. You don't want to have to change tires. And if you have to make a tire change, you're going to be struggling. So have to wait and see what happens here for Blake Reynolds as the race goes on. I think that he's going to be a lot more passive than we saw in the sprint.
Making the way through Maggots and Beckett's right now. Taylor Carroll trying to keep himself close within the slipstream of Blake Reynolds. Right behind them, Nate Stewart, John Marshbanks are going to be very close for the 3rd spot. So it's looking very similar to the start of the sprint race. The front 4 kind of breaking away a little bit, and right behind them, Ray Kingsbury has a line of cars from 5th on back behind him.
Yeah, 1st through 6th have really are still within the slipstream, or sorry, top 5 are still
Blake got
within the
really loose going into the last couple corners, 16 and 17, and Carroll's able to take the lead. So Blake had a moment there and a half.
Yeah, and I think that might have just been a little loss of focus early on, but he seems to have the car under him. He has the talent to make it up. You see a car there in the background. I think that's Ray Kingsbury flashing his lights, saying, hey, carry on, and I'll just stuck in behind. But these drivers still trying everything they can early on to make sure they don't lose a position on track. Taylor Carroll, he's got 3/4 of a second of a lead on Nate Stewart, and just about everybody else behind is Linus Stern. So they need to work their way back up to him before anybody tries to make a move.
Marwan Mafta there off the track in the Audi, you see. So I think he and Chris Wetz both got slowdowns. And there's a little bit of a smoke going into turn 3 and 4 there. We'll have to see what was happening there. But everyone seems like they've gotten it under control. And we're looking a little bit further back to the front here. It looks like there's about a 7-car breakaway towards the front. But Taylor Carroll slowly starting to put some distance on Nate Stewart up at the front. And another one around, that's Chris Wetz again.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor, the lone M-Class driver now left in the top 10. Justin Robichaud just outside in 11th spot. So he's got some work to do to work his way back up. Jonathan Taylor is doing everything he can to work his way even further up. He's not far off of Savian Reichster at the moment, just over a second behind. He's definitely well within slipstream range.
We've hinted at Jonathan Taylor's sponsor, the American Badass Whiskey Mercedes.
I want some.
So we mentioned that earlier in the season. So shout out to them for being a good sponsor. But more trouble back here. That's Matthew Powers is facing the wrong way in his BMW. So a lot of action early.
Yeah, and he takes the tow back to the pits. Chris Wetz just mentioned in the driver's chat, slowdown refused to clear. So he, I think, either had to force himself to serve it or he has to serve it down the pit lane. But Chris Wetz is down towards the back of the field. He's got a lot of work to do here the rest of the way. Thankfully for him, though, it's early. There's
a gaggle of cars back here. Brian Sohn in the 03. He's got a lot of pressure from Tommy Joe Valenzuela back here. These guys are pretty much last on the racetrack, but they're fighting like they're fighting for the lead. Look at these 5 cars going at it.
You know what? If I was fighting with anybody, I wouldn't give anybody any spots. I mean, I might suck, but I still have pride, and these guys doing everything they can to hold on to their position right now on the racetrack. As Brian runs a little bit wide, he's going to hold the inside here. Got a car right up his backside. There's 5 cars right here within about a car length of each other.
At the rear of the field. So they are putting it all out there. Chris Wetz in that Lamborghini back there, passing the Porsche of Kevin Fanning, or the Ferrari of Kevin Fanning back there.
I went to the Colts versus Commanders game this weekend. It was the battle of the backups, and I think this right here we can call it the battle of the back markers.
I guess you could, but it's probably the most exciting thing happening on the track right now, as you see Brock Quinn going by Brian's son and Kevin Fanning right there, and the Ferrari going through as well. So Brian's slipping back a little bit. He started 14th. He slipped back to 17th, so he has not gained any spots since the start of this thing.
Now, Robert Lowry, we saw him kind of have himself a half spin in the sprint race. So that kind of impacted his qualifying spot for this feature. He is now about half a second off of Lance Nasir. He's trying to work his way back up even further inside the top 10, but he just can't get anything done. That Ford looks pretty damn good out there, but he just can't make up any positions on track. Oh, and there's a car round off to the side, yeah.
So is that
that's Savian Ragster there in the 91.
Savian was up in the top 10 pretty handily, so that's got to be some kind of error on him. We'll see if we can get a replay, but Savian didn't make a single mistake in the sprint race, and it looks like he just loses it going into turn 16 upon further review.
I think we need to stop saying nice things about drivers as we take a look at the replay. We were talking nice about him with his broken arm from a couple of years ago, and now he goes
maybe a little too hard into the corner, had to use a lot of extra brake, and the rear just comes around.
I think that was an entry there where just unfortunately lost the back end. It came around and he lost a couple spots. Fortunately enough, there's plenty of runoff, didn't hit anything, but that still hurts to see because he lost a ton of ground there. He's back into 11th.
For you Brian Son fans, he's on pit road now as the first car to come down manually that didn't take a tow, I believe. So he is sitting getting service in his stall. I don't know if he's going to come out in anytime soon or not. He's been in there for almost a minute.
I have to say, though, if you know anything about Brian at this point, even if he works his way down pit road, no matter how much damage he has, he's going to work his way back out on track. I mean, he's got that Penguin RC car. He wants to give it as much track time as he can. He wants us to look at him and look at his sponsors and mention him. You can't see him from here, but that Penguin RC car, I mean, he wants us to mention him. That's why he puts his name on just about everything he can. Because, I mean, he makes some good products. I believe, if I remember right, he hand makes all the stuff they sell on Penguin RC.
Oh, no.
They give products out. So shout out to Brian and Penguin for sponsoring the events. And what's the oh-no for? What did I miss?
There's big trouble for Gary Freeman in the 666. He's lost his hood. There you see it.
Hey, we're in the UK. You got to call it the bonnet. He lost his bonnet.
He's lost the bonnet. It just doesn't sound right with the American accent. I don't think, it sounds weird. But,
There's a look at the replay of how he lost. You see, he still has the bonnet there.
Well, this is the boot of the car since it's a mid-engine vehicle. But there you see, just man.
Oh, and that's an unfortunate place to lose the back end of the car.
You're trying really hard right now for the British accent to come through.
Cheerio.
Oh man, sorry for our international viewers out there for offending you guys. We love you, but up towards the front here, this is Lance Nasir and Jonathan Taylor. We mentioned Jonathan Taylor at the beginning part of the race. We said nice things about him to start this one, so by Chad's logic, it's only a matter of time before something bad happens to him in this race, so we'll keep an eye on that. And I'm kind of upset because I said the Pro Division will be the best thing to watch. Nobody's really close to each other in the division, so I kind of probably jinxed that.
I mean, the front five have kind of broken themselves away, but you got Lance Nasir here that we're watching, and he's holding on to that spot for the time being from Jonathan Taylor, and he's running the 007 car. So all I can hear in my head is that James Bond music as he tries to find a way to get away, but these spies aren't too sneaky out here when you have to run a certain course at Silverstone.
Well, Lance is from Canada, so that automatically disqualifies him from any James Bond comparisons.
No. It was a part of the British Empire.
Unreal. He's no Pierce Brosnan or Sean Connery. I will say that. We love Lance, though. Lance is a big proponent of dead zone racing, spotter for Blake Reynolds, and the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series has some of those iconic spotting calls of all time in that series. So, big Lance Nasir fan. We're big fans of him over at Dead Zone.
Now, I have to ask, completely off topic here from the race at hand, but speaking of spotters, what would your race call have been for the Ross Chastain move of the NASCAR race this past weekend? Because I wouldn't know what to say.
I wouldn't know what to say either. I would just say, man, he's riding the damn wall.
I would just say outside. Where the hell did he come from outside?
Outside, further outside. Something like that. I don't know.
That was an insane move, and I'm so glad for him that it worked out, because that was crazy. That's a video game move, as everybody said right there. It's
an iconic moment. It literally got the world talking about NASCAR. It was beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm not the biggest fan of the current NASCAR playoff, format, but it clearly paid off right there, and I give him props. So congratulations to him as he looks for the championship this weekend.
Hope he wins it now. I think everyone else does.
Oh, for sure. That has to be well worth it, right?
If you did that to get there, you better win it.
Still up front, by the way, Taylor Carroll now has Blake Reynolds and Nate Stewart both within a second of him. Three of them all kind of pulled away from Ray Kingsbury in fourth, but they're all lined to start working their way now through Maggots and Beckett's.
Two of these three drivers here will be competing in the Bar Visuals FTF Cup Series Championship race this weekend here, live on FTF GG. So y'all be here for that. That's going to be a great time. From the Phoenix International Raceway. Not a fan of the track whatsoever, but the race is going to be very crazy. And if you're into crazy races, please be sure to be here for that, as Blake Reynolds, trying to make up for his mistake a few laps ago, has closed all the way back in to leader Taylor Carroll, and it might just be a matter of time here before Blake overtakes as we look on board the roof cam of Nate Stewart.
Yeah, you mentioned Phoenix. That's one of those tracks where, as a PM18 driver, I miss the previous version, but at this point, you can't bring it back, so we'll have to see what we can do, because I miss running the no dogleg version, and it was a fantastic time. Unfortunately, iRacing, I don't think has it anymore. So,
well, you can't call it the dogleg anymore. It has a new name in the FTF/bottom split community.
Oh, what's the new name?
It's the Degleg.
Degleg, okay.
The Degleg. You got to get used to saying it like that.
Okay. Yeah, I remember running that, though. I mean, I used to cut the heck out of that. I remember running the apron through 3 and 4 in the PM18, and the community hated me for it, but I made a qualifying set that worked. I'm sorry. So
what did you cut the heck out of?
Oh, I cut the heck out of 3 and 4. Or whatever corner numbers they are now. I think it's what
1 and 2 now.
No, man. Yeah, no. Anyway, back to the race at hand. We're watching here as we've got some interesting driving.
John Marshbanks has driven by Ray Kingsbury right there. I think Ray let him go, but Marshbanks his lap times are actually faster than the cars ahead of him. Maybe not faster than Blake Reynolds right there, but he has been faster than Nate Stewart and Taylor Carroll ahead of him. So
I think Ray must have had a slowdown because he just let Marshbanks go by. He lost a ton of time to Nate Stewart. This is one of those tracks where if you look in the iRacing rulebook, they have the quote-unquote new off-road or off-track slowdown rules. So they could definitely be feeling the pain of those slowdowns maybe a little bit more than usual here at this place.
Definitely one of those tracks where if you're not careful, you'll get bitten by those zones.
I think the worst part for these guys is, it's a Le Mans, if you get a slowdown, you can easily just let off maybe a little bit earlier into either the chicanes or the Porsche curves, and you can easily serve those slowdowns without actually losing any time. But here, if you're going to slow down, you have to slow down. You can't, cheat it in any way possible, and you're just going to have to give up whatever time that the iRacing says you need to give up.
I think everyone's been pretty cognizant of that after Chris Wett said slowdown refused to clear. Haven't seen too many slowdowns out of everybody, since that. We just had a couple right there potentially. Look at this battle right here. Look at Robert Lowry. Savian Ragster right behind that Ford GT is trying to keep every single spot it can.
Taylor Carroll's got a second and a half over Blake Reynolds for the overall lead. Back in the M class, it's Jonathan Taylor with about a 3-second gap over Justin Robichaux with one car in between there. You see them indicated in red on the timing and scoring screen. Now, these drivers still only a quarter of the way into the race, and man, it just feels like it's been so much longer. These races have so much action, you think, oh man, it's been half an hour, it's been 40 minutes. No, we're only 15 minutes into this race, and we've got battles all across the field.
I was just thinking about that because I was looking through everything and I saw the timer and I was like, there's only been 15 minutes so far in this thing. So definitely a slow mover so far for this race. So there's plenty of a ways to go before we get to the end of this thing.
Blake Reynolds struggling so far as he's dropped back 3 positions where he started. It's Carroll from Stewart, from Marshbanks, from Reynolds, and he's got half a second on Ray Kingsbury. And I wonder if maybe this quote-unquote team orders between Kingsbury and Reynolds where they say, hey, let's draft together and try to catch back up to the cars in front, as Reynolds right there gets by John Marshbanks.
Side by side down the Wellington Straight. So we'll see who can outbrake who. Reynolds going into the corner will get the preferred lane through. Does Marshbanks try the crossover?
It's very difficult. Left field is such a hard corner to run the outside and get a move done, and unfortunately he's just going to have to tuck back into line for him as he just tucks all the way to the wall. Does Reynolds as those are Woodcoats coming up the cups, and he's just doing everything he can to hold off the cars behind because he's got a battle on his hands.
Oh man, Blake is losing the rear end of that car. You saw it right there coming through Mackett's and Beckett's.
I know that these cars don't have many pit stop adjustments to them. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, here you see a move to the inside. Marshbanks thought about going to the inside. They're still side by side.
They're losing more and more time to Nate Stewart and Taylor Carroll ahead of them. So they gotta figure this thing out if they want to stay within striking distance of the 2 cars ahead.
Yeah, I know in the karting world, you can kind of tap your helmet and just say, hey guys, let's work together. Let's catch back up to the cars in front. But these guys, I know that they're all well-educated, they're well-respected drivers, but I think they need to realize, hey, let's work together. We have plenty of time left here. We can catch back up and we can fight for the win, but it all just comes down to what the tire wear is like and who has to make a pit stop and, unfortunately, who has to change tires. This might be the only race of the season where who has to change tires is even a question.
We'll definitely see. They definitely have to take tires, though. I mean, judging by what we saw in the sprint race, they are going to be fighting for grip if they're not careful enough throughout the first half of this thing. But definitely going to be interesting to see when they do. So do you try to hang on as long as you can and get the grip to close the race, or you try the undercut for everybody and force everyone else's hand? So we're going to see how that plays out as this thing marches along, as we're coming down to 40 minutes almost, 41 minutes to be exact, remaining here at Silverstone.
Now we're coming up on 1/3 distance, and you got, of course, Taylor Carroll. He's got over a second on Nate Stewart, and he's got a second on Blake Reynolds. But even further on back, we've got some close battles, whether that's Justin Robichaux trying to catch up to Matt Kingsbury, or Marwan Mafta trying to get past Tommy Joe Valenzuela. And I think that's an interesting one. Tommy Joe, he showed some pace back in practice and through qualifying, but unfortunately, once we got to the race sessions, he has not been able to find his way up to the front of the field. So he's barely holding on right now to 12th spot, and he's feeling pressure from Marwan in the 191.
He definitely is, and Marwan has had some pretty good pace right now in that Audi. So we're going to see how he can manage his way up through this field. As pretty much we're separated into groups. You see 4 cars here, got 3 cars right behind them: Kevin Fanning, Brock Quinn, and Chris Wetz. So these guys are definitely separated pretty well the first half here at Silverstone.
Yeah, the leaders have pulled away quite a bit. We've got some battles further back in the field. We'll take a short break and be back in just a couple of moments here on FTF.GG. And back to the action here from Silverstone. We've had some breaking news slash updates as the race has gone on. Savian Ragster from the fight for the lead, unfortunately, has dropped back to at least the 17th position. He's just recently disconnected from the server due to packet loss. So, unfortunately, that's the real-world equivalent of a mechanical failure there for Savian and the 91. So, unfortunate to see, but we still have the battle up front between Taylor Carroll and Blake Reynolds. Nate Stewart right there as well. Top three all line astern, and they dive their way through and try to work their way around through the slower part of this track, and Blake Reynolds gonna go up to the lead.
Definitely a bit of a sneaky move there on Blake's part, so he will go back to the front. We have some issues further back. I believe Chris Wetz is making a pit stop, so that's not an issue. So Chris Wetz, shortly before the halfway point in this race, is the first one to come down pit road. So we'll see if that works for him and see if anyone follows suit.
Yeah, I'm surprised you see a pit stop this early. Of course, drivers always try to play the strategy game, but I don't know. I mean, we've seen it time and time again in the series. It's just whoever blinks last seems to be the one to come out on top, and we'll have to hope that it plays out for him. But I think that we're seeing slipstream back to the front for Taylor Carroll, so he's going to go back up to the lead. The biggest thing, though, is you talk about, guys making their pit stops early. This isn't a series with full course hills. We had one, of course, in the endurance event there back at Fuji, but we won't have one here. There's no chance at the safety car, as we're 35 minutes away from the checker flag, and these drivers just need to realize, hey, I got to play the strategy out. Unless my tires are completely shot and I need to change something, I need to stay out as long as I possibly can.
Well, you got to keep in mind, too, that Blake pretty much all but confirmed that he and Taylor Carroll are on the same setup in this one. So these guys are going to be pretty close. As Ray Kingsbury now, you see, ducks on the pit road. So he's the second one. He will pit from, I believe, the 4th position on the racetrack. So we'll see. We'll see if Chris Wetz maybe inadvertently opened the pit road doors for this one, and we'll see if people try to get the undercut completed here.
Yeah, I'm very surprised by. Oh, that's one of the Artisan cars.
Gary Freeman.
Gary.
Set a rough go of it in this one as well. Robert Lowry. Oh, never mind. I was seeing Ray Kingsbury still on pit road at 0. So no one else besides Chris Wetz and Ray have made their way down pit road, and Ray is down and away, so he's going to exit. Let's see how long it takes for him. It was a 25 second pit stop. So that is a large gap to lose making a pit stop here, especially.
I'm surprised that he did that, because he is one of the drivers that I know from. I've known him for about 4 years on the service, and he's always one of those drivers. He's going to wait until the last possible second to make a pit stop. Unless he sees something that we're not seeing, I'm very surprised by that move.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. No one's really, counteracted the pit stop yet. So all leaders are still out there. And if I'm the 3 leaders here, I don't think I'm going to make a stop or duck off unless the other cars I'm racing are ducking off as well. And we got another car to kind of sort of pay attention to that's in the same second bracket, that 4th car back there. That's John Marshbanks in the 30. He is he's clinging on to this battle, not really within slipstream range yet. He's about a second and a half away, but if he gets within 1.2 seconds or so, he could draft his way up there and make this a 4-car battle as Blake Reynolds all but bumps Taylor Carroll out of the way.
I do have confirmation, by the way, Ray Kingsbury, when he came down pit road, he made a 1 tire change. So he made it early. He made 1 tire change, and he is back underway. So that's what that was. That was a strategy call. He figured he'll try to save it the rest of the way, and he's hoping to make up time. I have to believe that's going to be the left rear for him, because you only get 1 tire gun on these GT3, so you only get 1 tire change at a time.
What?
What?
I'm a 1. He changed 1 tire, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Oh man, that's unique. I think we'll see if that works. But we just saw here Blake Reynolds and Taylor Carroll are having a heck of a battle for the lead, and that has allowed Marshbanks to reel these guys in. So he is now within slipstream range of these guys back there. There you see him just creeping in a frame right there as they make their way down the front stretch or straightaway. But these guys are going to have to pit very soon, so it might be a tale of who's the most efficient in and out of the pits.
Just as an update, by the way, Saving Reiser mentioned disconnecting due to a packet loss issue. He has not yet reconnected, so he's back down right now in 18th position. He's probably going to finish either 18th or 19th, depends on if Gary Freeman gets back out on track. He's serving his repairs as well, but Saving Reiser are going to finish down towards the bottom of the field. But still, top 5, all the pro drivers. Jonathan Taylor currently sits 6th overall, leading the AM category. And he's doing everything he can just to hold on to that spot. He's got Matt Kingsbury right behind him. So definitely going to start seeing things shuffle up a little bit with pit stop cycling through. As Ray Kingsbury, we talked about him making his pit stop, taking 1 tire change, down to 14th position with a 25-second stop.
I mean, you might as well take all 4 tires. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand that one for that, because they have to jack the whole car up anyway to change all the tires. So that is, I don't know, I need more clarification from that one. But as they make their way through turns 3 and 4 right now, it's still Blake Reynolds is your leader. He has about a second on Taylor Carroll. So it's getting interesting up at the front. They're getting closer and closer as we go.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely interesting to watch. But these guys, I mean, I think that they know what they're doing when it comes to strategy and fuel and tire changes and everything like that. It all just comes down to who can save the most for the end. And your top 3 right now, I think that they're kind of doing the basic strategy. Wait as long as you can to try to make that stop.
Wish I could tell who Zach is pulling for in this race. He never says anything. Just sits there behind the computer and hits buttons the whole time. All right, Zach, I'm going to give you a challenge. Go put the camera on whoever you think is going to come out of the pits ahead of everybody. Nobody. All right. Nope.
Oh, we're on board with somebody, but I don't know who this is.
That was Gary Freeman. Then it was Nate Stewart.
Oh, he was looking for the pace car is what he said. So
the safety car, not the pace car.
I want you to go out there and hit the pace car.
So let's see. We're getting closer and closer. Now the leaders are kind of starting to spread out a little further. So they get to the slow speed zones here, and they slowly kind of start to get further and further away. Reynolds and Carroll are starting to break away from Stewart and Marshbanks.
Yeah, still Reynolds from Carroll. And that's about half a second between the two of them. They've got a second and a half back to Nate Stewart, and he's got another second back to John Marshbanks. But the 4 of them have really broken away, because Lance Nasir in 5th is 13 seconds. I think he's working a bit on the pit lane now. He was about 10 seconds behind John Marshbanks before he even broke for the pit lane. So he is trying to do everything he can to work his way through.
Nasir is in the pits. Kingsbury's in the pits. So we're starting to get more and more show they're making their way down. So let's see. I think maybe we'll see some of the leaders pitting very soon, as we have one in the grass just ahead of them. That's I wanted to say that was Tommy Joe Valenzuela. That was Matt Kingsbury, I believe. He's still in his pit stall.
Reynolds just made a slight mistake, a slight bobble, lost a little bit of time. But he's still building his lead as he goes by the 92 of Jake Robichaux. And fortunately enough, it doesn't cost him much. He's just flying around this track as Taylor Carroll's right there. And whew, Taylor Carroll had a close one there with Jake Robichaux.
A little bit of a surprising turn of events here. Chris Wetz, remember, he was the first car to come down the pit lane. He hasn't really made up any ground. He's only back in 14th still.
Taylor Carroll is not happy with Jake Robichaux. He was not pleased with the move that he made through Maggots and Beckett, cutting in on the racing line as he has multiple laps down. So they had a little bit of an exchange over the radio, and oh, here comes Blake Reynolds, the overall leader, to the pit lane.
First one to break in. No one else follows him, though. That's interesting.
There you see working his way down the pit lane comes Blake Reynolds. Your leader's still working their way around. And the pit lane is very interesting here. You know, it's such a long one. The entry is still back before even you get to club corner. So you have to turn in basically off Stowe, and everybody knows you're going to pit. So it's an interesting pit lane to watch. You go through Abbey. You basically come out at the exit of farm, and you know that's how this track ends up. Is you cut so much time off of the course from taking the pit lane, so much distance, but you know you lose so much time with the pit lane speed limit. It kind of balances itself out.
When Mofta makes his way down the pit lane, so he will come in from the top 10 in the Audi, so he will make his way down. Let's see if none of our leaders are coming down pit lane either. So I don't know. Did Blake pit too early? We'll see. He's got to have a lot of quick laps, and right now he doesn't have any drafting help. He has a little bit. He's got Justin Robichaux ahead of him, but man, we'll see if this call comes back to bite Blake Reynolds. That is a questionable call, to say the least, right now, especially with the leaders still on the racetrack.
I wonder if that was I'm going to pit and pray somebody comes behind me, or if it's I'm just going to pit now, try to make up time with the undercut, and hope that it works out in my favor. But for the time being, it's still Taylor Carroll out in front over Nate Stewart, and he's got about half a second back to John Marchbanks. So top three, the only three really in contention at the moment, where you've got Jonathan Taylor in fourth, 20 seconds behind the overall lead.
Oh boy. Strategy playing out. So there you see Nate Stewart. He is taking the third position away, and there they go into the pit lane. Carroll and Marchbanks down into the pits, so Stewart will resume the lead, or take the lead, and the front two now make their way into the pit lane.
The other gap to watch, by the way, Blake Reynolds back to Ray Kingsbury. Both of those are the first guys that have worked their way down pit lane. Reynolds has got a 20-ish second lead over Ray Kingsbury. I'm not great at math, but it's something like that, as you see drivers continue to work their way down one at a time down the pit lane. Blake Reynolds down the front straightaway. We'll have to see where he cycles out. I think he's going to be able to get out in front of the other two drivers there. Nate Stewart's going to be the question mark, as he is still out on track. Jonathan Taylor's still out as well. But Blake Reynolds, for the time being, is 30 seconds behind Nate Stewart. But he's got plenty of race distance to go.
So now the question becomes, when will Nate Stewart make his pit stop? Because he has foregone the pit lane again, this time through. So he remains on the track. He's heading through turns. He's coming up to Maggots and Beckett's right now. So we'll see. I'm going to say that he makes his pit stop on this lap. I don't think he can go very much longer without getting his pit stop done compared to everyone else. So all the leaders have pit except for him. So we'll see if he brings that big old BMW down pit lane now. But definitely it'll be interesting to see how this is all going to shake out, as we're paying very close attention to the battle for second now. Blake Reynolds trying to hang on to that third spot. Jonathan Taylor is up the road from him. So I think you're right, Chad. The way this is going to shake out is, here comes Nate Stewart. He brings that BMW onto pit lane. So Blake Reynolds should shake out to the leader when this is all said and done.
By the way, and it was additional 6 seconds for Ray Kingsbury over Blake Reynolds to take that left rear tire that I mentioned talking to him about. So it's going to be interesting to see, as there you see your overall leader working his way towards the pit lane. That's going to be Nate Stewart into the line. Jonathan Taylor follows back behind him. So that's going to be Blake Reynolds up to the lead. And I think he might just have a considerable margin once everything cycles through.
Jonathan Taylor, as you saw there, is on pit lane as well. So Blake Reynolds comes off the final corner. He will cycle out to the lead. Robert Lowry brings his Ford GT in from the 4th position, so he will slide on back a little bit. And John Marchbanks will slot into 3rd And it looks like he will come out third overall. Nate Stewart might have just taken fuel only. He's already out of the pits and into second.
Maybe I missed. So I thought that I would have thought that Ray Kingsbury would maybe have been a little bit closer here. He currently is in the 5th position, 6 seconds behind Lance Nasir. Maybe he just had a miscue where he had a spin or something, but I thought he would have been a lot closer. He's currently in the 5th spot, and he's got 6 seconds on Jonathan Taylor for that 6th position. So he's holding on to 5th, and he's got a handy margin there for him as he dives down now around this Silverstone circuit. And I think overall he's going to be quite happy with the 5th place position, or he's going to lock up the championship here tonight.
Weird how some of this shakes out sometimes. You know, you think you got the race figured out, and then something happens where a big old curveball is thrown into here, and now you got to decide what's going to happen again. So this race has been the epitome of that. No pun intended. There's been a lot of left and right turns, twists and turns in this, and this has been an interesting follow for sure.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic season so far, and some fantastic battles all throughout this race. And you know, right now we got Blake Reynolds out in front by just over a second. A lot closer than I thought it would be with the way that those pit stops shook out, but it's still Blake in front of Nate with John Marshbanks back behind. But we've got 20 minutes left in the race, and we'll take a short break and be back for the final 20 minutes here at Silverstone on FTF.GG. And back to Silverstone for the final segment of this race. Under 17 minutes to go. Had some interesting developments during the break as well. Blake Reynolds pulled away over a 3-second lead over Nate Stewart, where John Marshbanks is right there with him. They had some interference from Jake Robichaux in the slower lapped car. Talked about Ray Kingsbury before the break. He stopped first, and he's up into the top 5, but he's barely holding on. This is a replay of what happened moments ago. And there you see Jake just in front of the second place car of Nate Stewart. So that's what cost him so much time. Unfortunately for everybody involved, that there was no contact, but unfortunately there for Nate Stewart, that might just be his race done and dusted. He's going to have to settle for second spot unless he can make up considerable time.
Unless something happens to Blake Reynolds, which you never know could happen. He could just
not wrong
forget how to drive for a corner, and that could change the whole complexion of this race. But Zach was talking over the break, and he says, I can't wait for something to happen to one of these leaders because of these lap cars. He didn't say it seriously, of course. He was being sarcastic, and then it happens. So credit to Zach for just being a bad omen for these races, I guess.
So still Reynolds from Stewart from Marshbanks, and those second and third cars have kind of gapped themselves a little bit. They've got about a second between second and third now. And even they have they have 5 seconds back to Lance Nasir. So they've got a pretty big margin. Most of the field has settled itself out now. I wonder if we can't drop back to the 441 of Kevin Fanning. He is about just over half, or just under half a second from Tommy Joe Valenzuela as they try to work their way around. He's trying to find any position that he can. Of course, it's further back in the field, but it's the closest battle we've got on track at the moment as Fanning works his way now through left field and try to find his way around Tommy Joe.
One of the few Ferraris that is still intact in this field is Kevin Fanning, so we'll keep an eye on him. There you see a battle between Chris Wetz and Marwan Mafta. This is for third in the AM class. You're very close, and there goes Wetz around. Loses the rear end. He's not going to spin it all the way. Gets it onto the access road. Crisis averted.
I think it's funny, during that spin, Marwan Mafta comes over there, are you good? And Chris Wetz types, nah.
Nope. Chris Wetz. I don't think I've ever heard Chris Wetz speak in my life.
Does he have a voice?
I've heard he does. I can't confirm or deny it. So I need. Thank you, Zach.
That can't confirm, yes. But overall, just the way that these drivers are racing. I mean, whew, it's been quite the challenge all throughout the fields, and so far it's settled out pretty nicely. Blake Reynolds, though, less than a second lead over Nate Stewart. We'll have to wait and see how things can play out for him. Under 15 minutes left here at Silverstone.
Which is very odd because we mentioned the incident for Nate Stewart. The gap for first and second went up to 2 seconds, and Nate Stewart's able to get it back under a second. 9/10 of a second now officially is the gap. Now 8/10. So I don't know. This is interesting here to finish out this race.
I want to get a quote from one of the former leaders of tonight's event. Savian Ragsler said, quote, "My internet blew up, so I left."
Well, that happens when your internet does not work during an online race. So that's a shame, though. I've been there. We've all been there on the service, and that is a bummer and a half. So big F's in the chat for Savian's internet there.
One race left to go on the season. That's coming up in 2 weeks' time at Silverstone. The Pro Championship is just about locked up with Ray Kingsbury getting what would it be expected to be a solid finish here tonight. Then when it comes down to the AM category, you've got Chris Wetz over Brock Quinn and Jonathan Taylor coming into tonight. Now you've got Chris Wetz currently in. Oh, let's see. I'm not great at math, but he's gonna need to make up some room, or else Jonathan Taylor's gonna make up a ton of ground on him.
He's got to be cognizant of that, of course. So we got to make sure we're paying close attention to that one. And up front, Blake Reynolds has probably put a little bit of distance between he and Nate Stewart. The lead is over a second now. But I'll give Nate credit. I mean, I'm pretty sure he took fuel only on his pit stop, so he only had just like a splash and go pretty much to get into the end. And he's doing a good job of staying with Blake Reynolds. So big props to Nate there for making those tires last.
Yeah, Blake Reynolds 18.7 in the box, 18.5 for Nate Stewart. Just about everybody else is either, if you take fuel only, you're about 18 seconds, and then if you take a tire, you're down to about 25, which is where Ray Kingsbury kind of set himself up to be. I don't know whether that strategy is going to work out for him, as he is currently 15 seconds behind fourth place of Lance Nasir, and unfortunately for some of these guys, the yellow flag is just not going to come. You're not going to see the safety car, and you're just going to have to pray that somebody in front of you makes a mistake.
No bailout yellow in this one.
It sounds like the truck series back in, it was 2013, where they said, hey, we're going to have the caution clock on. Something's going to happen. So these guys doing everything they can just to race their way out of it. And I think the closest battle we've got on track right now is Kevin Fanning once again, holding off Justin Robichaux, and he's not far behind Tommy Joe Valenzuela as well. These drivers all pretty close to one another.
Just keep that Ferrari in one piece. We need one Ferrari at least to finish this thing.
Ferrari go Burr.
Nah, man.
I mean, we've always got Gary Freeman, right?
Gary has had a rough go of it the last couple of races. He's still sitting on pit road. He's been in his box now for a total of 24 and a half minutes. So I don't think he'll be making a reappearance onto the racetrack. I think it's only up to the last couple of Ferraris here. So if we can get one to finish at the end of this thing, that would be I would consider that a win.
And here goes Kevin Fanning on your screen, through Abbey, through Farm, now through Village, and then to the loop. And he's starting off this lap and trying to find any way to make up ground on the car in front. That's Tommy Joe Valenzuela, just over a second ahead, not within slipstream range. So things are sorted out pretty heavily. But let's jump back up front. Things are getting interesting from Nate Stewart and Blake Reynolds. They're within a couple tenths of a second now, as things are very tight up at the front. It's Reynolds from Stewart from Marshbanks, and all three of them within about a second and a half of each other.
Marshbanks is just outside a slipstream range, I should say. So he's creeping up in there. But Nate Stewart, he's found something on these older tires. He's definitely been able to keep pace and then some with Blake Reynolds. So if he's able to keep the mistakes to a minimum, he's going to be challenging Blake for the lead here very soon.
Porsche versus BMW, the slipstream, going to be a ton of help here for the 04. And he is just right there. Is he going to pop out of line as they go towards Abbey? Can he make the move? No, not quite close enough, but they're using all the curbing, all the racetrack, anything that's paved, they're going to find it. And just tons of defensive driving from Blake Reynolds, under 8 minutes to go.
Into turns 3 and 4 now. Is Nate he's got to get the run off the corner well to get a good drive down the straightaway. Still well within slipstream, but I don't think he's going to be able to make a move at the end of the hanger straight.
Now still continues on without issue, and he's right there, though. He's doing everything he can just to make sure, hey, if Blake makes a mistake, he is human. We've seen him make mistakes before. I want to be right there for it. He's licking his chops sitting in the draft, and he's going to try to force the issue. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next couple laps we see those headlights flashing.
He's got plenty of time. He still has 7 minutes, but that'll go by quicker than you think, especially if you're Nate Stewart. Blake Reynolds, that 7 minutes must seem like an eternity right now if he's trying to win this race. Had some issues with Tommy Joe Valenzuela. He has had an issue, and he is off the track now, so that's a unfortunate end to Tommy Joe's race. But look at Marshbanks. He's slowly making his way up there. This is going to be a 3-car battle before this thing is said and done.
Yeah, no, all three of these cars now, he's definitely within half a second. He's in that slipstream range for Marshbanks on Stewart. And I think that he's just sitting there. He's watching Stewart apply the pressure. It's like me watching the microwave waiting for my chicken tenders to be done. Just sitting there waiting for it and hoping that everything gets cooked and I can take advantage of the opportunity and have some tasty victory at the end of the night.
Figures you say chicken tenders with Blake leading. I think I knew what you were doing there. Blake Reynolds, the ultimate chicken tendies fan, as he calls them. On board with Marshbanks, looking up ahead to Stewart and Reynolds. He's right there. He was faster than both of these guys almost last lap. Actually, he was the only one of these three cars in the 1:57 bracket. And Nate Stewart, the tires might be starting to fall off of that car. If you're Marshbanks, what do you do here? Do you try to pass him right now or try to push yourself up to him? Because if he gets stuck side by side with Stewart, Reynolds is going to run away with this thing.
Update to China Joe Valenzuela. Unfortunately, it looks like he is disconnected due to a connection issue of his own. That's the third one of those we've seen tonight. So that's unfortunate for Tommy Joe. But if you're one of these front couple of drivers, I mean, I think that you just kind of have to wait it out. You know, whether you're, Marshbanks and you're sitting there waiting and think, maybe if Stewart can force the issue, open the door, and both of them make a mistake, I can push my way through. I don't know how early you want to go to be the one to kind of maybe push the issue here.
Man, if I'm Nate, I got to realize that Marshbanks is quicker, and Marshbanks is going to look to the outside than to the inside. And if I'm Stewart and if he gets a good run on me, I have to let him go. I don't want to lose a lot of time to Blake Reynolds, and maybe John can get up there and mix it up with Blake and maybe slow both of them down and I can sneak through. But definitely something Nate has to think about. It looks like the tires might finally be going away on that BMW, and Marshbanks is looking very strong at the end of this thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised the tires have held up on Blake Reynolds' 66 Porsche for this long, because he was talking about at the end of 20 minutes how his left rear was gone, and he's holding on for dear life right now, but he's got Nate Stewart back behind him. Different make tire wear is going to be a little bit different, and he seems to be holding on, Nate Stewart does, for the time being, but he's feeling the pressure both of himself trying to catch up to the driver in front, but feeling pressure from behind because Marshbanks has been right there the last couple laps.
Well, we also heard Blake mention earlier, we were talking to him about how bad the dirty air is, especially at this track with so many high-speed corners, that it makes just getting to someone, is one thing, passing them is another for this, and it couldn't be more prevalent in this race. We saw Nate Stewart be able to reel Blake in, but as soon as he got to within 1 second, down to maybe about half a second, he was just stuck, and the handling of that BMW was just not the same, so it's going to take a lot to figure out how to handle through this dirty air, and Blake's hard enough to pass without dirty air. I can't imagine how tough he is to pass with it.
Now, I think, we've got over 3 minutes left in this race. Of course, anything can happen through these front three, but I think, honestly, my biggest surprise right now is Ray Kingsbury in the 25, the championship leader, somehow 22 seconds back, 15 seconds behind the car in front. I don't know if that's a strategy call that kind of didn't work out for him, or something just not falling in his favor, but that's a considerable margin that we wouldn't expect him to normally be in.
He was the slowest on pit road throughout everybody in the top five, so by about 5 seconds he was the slowest compared to the next slowest one, so that is definitely a telltale factor of that. 5 seconds is just an absolute killer on pit road if you get through it that slowly, so that might be a big factor for Ray. But back up front here, you see as they head down to Maggots and Beckett's, Blake Reynolds is pulling away now. So it looks like Nate Stewart might be losing the rear grip on that BMW. And Marshbanks, I should say, is just stuck behind him in that dirty air.
And it's going to work their way now closer and closer to the end of this race. Blake Reynolds built himself a bit of a gap as the race continues on. And I'm surprised that, suddenly, what was a tenth or a couple tenths between the Reynolds, Stewart, and Marshbanks is now 2 seconds between first and second. And these guys continue to work their way around. So still Reynolds from Stewart from Marshbanks, and he's got quite the gap back to Lance Nasir. And we talked about Ray Kingsbury in 5th, but Lance even, we haven't seen him struggle like this yet this season. So getting closer and closer to the end, a minute left, and these guys just currently continue to log laps around this Silverstone track as the sun continues to set, and you can kind of see there headlights starting to come into play just a little bit. It's not going to matter much, but it's just enough that you're going to notice it.
Don't really see the headlights that much at Silverstone. Usually many of the races here are held during the daytime. But there's back up front, Nate Stewart just clinging on to that second place battle. Maybe he wanted to cool his tires down a little bit to see if he can make one more run at Blake Reynolds. Blake just kind of in cruise control right now. He sees Nate Stewart in his mirror, but he's not getting any closer or farther away. So we got to think we're coming up to the white flag this time by. So Nate Stewart has to figure something out if he wants to get a run on Blake Reynolds and pass him.
Just over a second is the gap. It's quite the margin. He's going to have to be very aggressive, and unfortunately for him, he's got a car right behind him. So if he makes a mistake trying to make a move, he's going to get capitalized on for that second spot. So Marshbanks trying to do everything he can to find his way around one final time around for these guys, and have to wait and see who's going to take the checkered flag. It thought about being Marshbanks. They're trying to make the move into Abu. Could not do it. He's going to continue to try to peek his nose side by side now through Village and through the loop, and they're still side by side.
Lap car gets out of the way as Stewart cuts off Marshbanks coming down to the hangar straight, and that might give him the gap he needs to hold him off. But that's all Blake Reynolds wants to see in his mirror. Those guys going at it for second place. He has put about another second on Nate Stewart. So all Blake has to do is keep all 4 tires on the tarmac, and I think he's on his way to yet another win.
Yeah, the wheel pointed the right direction. And Blake Reynolds, he's doing everything he can just to keep the car going the right way. And through the final corner he comes. Or not, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the old part of the track, man. That's the old start finish line. Now they go through cups and he works his way around. So just ignore me. They're going to work their way here through Maggots and Becks. Just still have half a lap left here at Silverstone.
It's been the longest hour of racing, I think, this season. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. Like, this race has not felt like it's been an hour, but longer. But Blake gets through Maggots and Beckett's very well. And Stewart still hasn't really made up any time. He's lost a little bit of time, as a matter of fact, to Blake. So, like I said, Reynolds, all he has to do, keep those tires on the racetrack. But Marshbanks, I don't think is done with Nate Stewart. I mean, he's within striking distance. So we'll see if Marshbanks tries to make a move. He's got a good couple of passing zones to do it right here.
You have to hope they have enough fuel here at the end. They go through towards the club corner for Blake Reynolds. He's got enough in it. But we've got a battle here. There's contact there between second and third. John Marshbanks is going to lose a ton of time. How many positions is he going to lose? He's got a considerable gap back to Lance Nasir. But I think he's going to hold on to the third position. And he does. Okay. Fantastic battle there between second and third. Wow.
Definitely.
What a battle.
Definitely not as big of a catastrophe as we thought it would be. So Marshbanks and Stewart fighting very hard to the end, but shocking. Blake Reynolds is your winner here at Silverstone. Let's take another look here. A bold move by Marshbanks to try to go around the outside, and there was just no room there whatsoever.
And I think part of that was that sausage curve that's there. Thankfully for Marshbanks, able to just hit the throttle, hammer down. He's going to hold on to the third spot, but I mean, wow. That was a fantastic bit of racing to the end, and, it's definitely some fun racing to watch. So looking at your final results, these are unofficial, of course, but Reynolds from Stewart, and we just heard from Blake Reynolds over the radio. So much for a burnout, I'm out of gas. So Reynolds take the checkered flag, but doesn't have enough to get back to the line for some celebration. And then you got Stewart, Marshbanks, Nasir, Ray Kingsbury wraps up the top 5. Jonathan Taylor somehow ends up 6th overall, the AM class leader and the winner here tonight. Then you got Matt Kingsbury, Taylor Carroll, Robert Lowry, and Kevin Fanning wrapping up the top 10. Shout out to Robert Lowry, the lone Ford in the top 10.
he has been doing it all season with the Ford there. He gets another top 10 for it. So back through the rest of the field, Justin Robichaux will finish in 11th, Marwan Mafta 12th, Chris Wetz, Brock Quinn, Brian Son, Tommy Joe Valenzuela, Jake Robichaux, Savian Ragster, Gary Freeman, Matthew Powers, and Spencer Ray will be your final finishers in this race. Blake Reynolds trying his best to limp it around the racetrack. We'll get a word with him in our top three whenever they all come to a stop and whenever Blake eventually runs out of gas. But this one was a very exciting one to the end there, Chad. It was definitely a thriller to watch towards the finish.
Yeah, I think it was the first time this season that we've seen tire wear come to actually be an issue. This track was a lot harder on tire wear than we thought we might have seen. You know, Ray Kingsbury, he made up a little bit of time towards the end with changing one tire. But unfortunately, you know, the amount of time it took to add to the stop for him to do so, unfortunately, cost him at the end. So he finished 5th, taking a tire. Unfortunately, he struggled, finishing 28 seconds behind. Blake Reynolds, though, dominating performance for him as we continue just to wait for a couple drivers to work their way into the booth here. So still Stewart finished second, and Blake Reynolds took the win, and John Marshbanks got on the podium for one of the few times we've seen him up here this season. We've called his name a lot, but the podium itself has kind of eluded him a couple times.
It's good to see him get that podium finish. So well done. He tried to get that extra position there. So props to him for giving it a try. And I'm just happy he didn't lose it. I think Lance Desir kind of checked up for him coming to the start finish line to preserve that finish for him. But good job by our front three here. Very well done. And they gave us a great race to watch. And I think we'll go ahead and have our winner, Blake Reynolds, come on in. So we'll have a word with Blake, Chad.
Yeah, Blake, we talked to you kind of in the post race of the sprint, and now you joined us up here in the feature, and man, it seemed pretty easy for you tonight.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I screwed up there at the beginning. I braked on the grass on the first lap, I think it was, right into the last chicane, and that really screwed me up. And then my tires just overheated for most of that beginning stint, and it wasn't until like right before we pitted to where I could actually make a charge again. And then that last run, it was loose. Me and my teammate Lance were on a similar set, and we could not drive past a certain pace. And there was a couple points at the track where Nate and John behind me were faster, so I was just trying to get my tires in check. That one, I think it was like the third to last lap or second to last lap, I pushed hard and set the PB, and that was my mistake because then they closed in again. But luckily, I got the tires in check and got the dub.
As we checked in with the Ray Kingsbury mid-race, and he took a tire on his pit stop. Was that ever a consideration for you, or were you just going to kind of run it down to the cords and pray that it held up?
No, I was not going to take a tire. I don't know. It's just not something I like. I like all four of my tires to be in the same balance, or stuff like that. So not something I consider. No.
I'll say we got one race left on the season. We're going to Sebring. We had the format change, I guess you could say, with the elimination of the prototype series or prototype class. But looking ahead, what are your thoughts on the GT3s and how things are working out for you?
Yeah, I like the GT3 class. Obviously, this is supposed to be like a Grand Am series or endurance of some kind, but it just doesn't really work as a, I don't know, and it's hard to mix like short stuff with endurance, and it's hard to have a full field, I guess. So obviously the IMSA official series doesn't have this problem because it's official. There's something to race for. But this is a fun league, and we're having, the people that have stuck around, I thank them a lot. But we're obviously looking at doing the new BMW, the LMDH, bring that in. I don't know if you can do this, but we were talking about making that class fixed in GT Open. I don't think you can actually do that, though. I wish we could.
Well, we'll figure it out, But
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
you got your Grand National Series starting next week. You looking forward to that one as we wrap things up here?
Yeah, and you as the driver of the 69 car.
Nice.
And Sean Butler, are you racing?
I'm the driver of the 32 car. Yes.
Excellent. And Zach Johnson, are you racing?
No, Zach doesn't race.
Oh,
He's producing
He's
potential.
producing 3 races: Talladega, or Road America, Talladega, and Chicago, the finale. That's what we have going right now. Still looking for sponsors. Anyone watching wants to reach out, just reach out to Zach here. I can have him pass it on to me, or DM the SimCAR League Twitter account, or even me, Blake Reynolds. I don't know. We'll figure it all out. But it should be a fun stuff, and this was a fun race tonight.
Well, hey, Blake, congratulations on the win, and best of luck next week at Sebring.
Thank you.
That's Blake Reynolds, the overall winner here tonight. We'll be joined up next. Sean, I think you've caught up with the M-Class winner, Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor, man. So I had a bit of a question from the sprint race, believe it or not. So we saw you had a fair amount of right front damage in that, and we were wondering where the heck it came from. Car looked pretty, clean towards the end of the main event, thankfully. But what in the world happened in the sprint race, so we can finally put that question to bed?
Yeah. So really the issue was that I got that a slowdown kind of out of the last section of the track, which is pretty common. That was what people were, I think, finding the most trouble on the track. Thought I did enough to get the slowdown done in the chicane. It turns out I didn't. So I went through the first couple of corners, tried to back it up before that slower section so I could try and keep the spot. And the 191 Marwin, I mean, he made a move, and I don't blame him. I was going pretty slow, and it was kind of one of those things. It was like I turned in a little bit. I think he was really going for it. So we touched sides, and then similar kind of thing. In the next corner, I was on the bottom, kind of running a more narrow line. He was on the top, running a more wider arc, and I just made contact. So that's racing. This sprint didn't really go my way. After that, I got wrecked pretty good by a car that wanted to jump off the track and then try and rejoin and without even being beside me and got me in the right rear. So I was more damage and another spin. So kind of stinks for the point situation, right? Trying to get every point that I can to catch up. That sucked. But luckily we recovered well, and the pay window opens at the end of the feature, right? So made sure that we had a good, strong, clean race there, and kind of stayed out of trouble and was very careful with my slowdowns. So really happy with the way I ran in the feature. Glad that the sprint we could reduce the damage.
Kind of stopped the bleeding a little bit there, as you were saying from that. But like you said, did a very good job, kept everything together in the feature, and was able to get a solid win, I would say, in your class. It doesn't get much better than that in terms of your class. So heading into the series finale here, first of all, are you going to be with us that week? I know you've had a up and down schedule with this season.
Yeah, I should be around. Looking at the calendar, I don't think I have anything on that Thursday night. So should be here, ready to roll and ready to win a championship.
For sure. So what's going to be your strategy heading in to the championship race? No, it's going to be a lot of the same stuff here. It's going to be probably keeping your car clean. So what's going to be your main goal in that one?
Yeah, Sebring's a tough track. Rough surface, really technical, kind of big variation of wide sweeping corners and really tight, intricate little sections. So gonna be a really interesting race. I think the key is gonna be to keep the car going straight. Jake Fisher and I have done a really great job, breaking out the wrenches and making sure this Mercedes Benz is running strong every week. But sometimes no matter how quick you are, you get kind of lost in battles, and can have things not go your way. So the biggest thing for me is no matter what the pace that we have, just to keep everything straight and everything kind of going forward. I mean, we have the momentum on our side, right? I mean, we won 2 in a row before Nürburgring, should have won Nürburgring, but stuff outside of my control. And then we win tonight. So momentum's obviously on my side. I think that if I run my race and make sure that I keep my nose clean, everything should pay off. So, and I like Sebring as well. Really fun track. And it kind of suits my driving style as well, which I don't think these last couple tracks have. So, really full of confidence and ready to get there in 2 weeks to wrap this thing up.
Always good seeing that American badass whiskey Mercedes in victory lane as well. So, Jonathan, thanks for talking to us, man. Congratulations and best of luck here in the championship race at Sebring in 2 weeks.
Cool. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, guys.
Jonathan Taylor, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up here with Chad. He's got John Marshbanks on the horn.
No, John, we got to make sure you get that right. It's John Marshbanks, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Hey, see, we nailed it. All right, that's all we need. All right,
a few weeks, right?
Interview's over. All right, good job. No, hey, you were in an intense battle there between you, Blake, and Nate the last couple laps. What was that like? I mean, it was intense watching you guys battle it out.
Oh my God, my heart was beating out of my chest. That was awesome. Hard racing in there at a couple contacts. I'm sure the stewards will take a look at it and come to the right decision. But it was a blast. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, what happened there the last lap? I mean, were you nervous you'd get overtaken for third, or? I mean, it looked like it was close there between you and Lance towards the end.
Yeah, I think it was me and Nate for second there. It was just I knew I was faster than him in a couple corners, but he was defending hard. It was just good hard racing, honestly.
Yeah, we're coming up on the last round of the season. But looking back, what are your thoughts overall? It's the first season for the series, and it's definitely been fun to watch you guys with the the 20-minute sprint and the hour-long feature. What are your thoughts as we get close to the end here?
Yeah, no, this is awesome league. I joined Long Beach, so I came in pretty late, but not a good first round for me there. But I've been pretty proud of myself the last few rounds. Big shout out to Taylor Carroll for finding me and asking me to join here and drive with him. It's been a great experience so far.
Yeah, it's great to have you in here. It is a ton of fun to watch. You, Nate, Blake, all these guys race the entire race and the entire season so far. So we got one more race left. We're going to Sebring next time around. What are your thoughts looking ahead?
I'm feeling pretty good there. I was running the official iRacing series, the IMSA multi-class races last week when it was there. Felt pretty good and comfortable, so got high hopes for that.
All right, man. As we wrap things up here, anybody you want to thank as we get set for one last week of racing?
Like I said, Taylor Carroll for giving me a shot here on his team. Simply inspired. It's been a good season so far, and look forward to more racing.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us up here in the booth, and congratulations on the third place finish. Finish.
Yes.
I'm selling you a little bit short, but hey, congratulations on the podium, and we'll see you 2 weeks time at Sebring.
All right, sounds good, guys.
Yep, that's John Marshbanks, the third place finisher here tonight. And Sean, any final thoughts as we wrap things up here?
I think everyone pretty much covered everything. So it was a roller coaster of a race for a lot of people, and it's another one of them attrition races. So I'm glad to see everybody was able to get through it, have a good time, and finish this thing off. And it should be a whale of a finale coming from Sebring in 2 weeks. So be sure to be there for that. And we're only getting started with our coverage of races on FTF this for the next coming week. Zach is going to be a busy man, but definitely going to be a lot of fun races on tap for sure, including the season finale in a couple weeks.
Yeah, the penultimate round here was just phenomenal. We've got one last race on the season, and I think some of the championships are going to come down to what happens next time out at Sebring. That's going to be at 2 weeks' time here on FTF, and got a couple of races. Check out make sure you subscribe to FTF here on Twitch, and check out ftf.gg to make sure you don't miss any of the action there. But overall, I mean, from all the action here and everybody else, and thanks to everybody who helps put the series on, whether that's Blake Reynolds, Ray Kingsbury, and all the sponsors of the series, as well as Penguin RC and Brian Sun. And check them out for racing wheels, RC components, and everything you do on that end of things. But overall, I mean, they've helped put on a fantastic season. We're just honored to broadcast it here. And for Sean Butler, for Zach Johnson, the most handsome director in all of iRacing, and
Debatable.
I mean, okay. But anyway, for everybody that helps put this thing on, I'm Cheddar Vine, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time from Sebring for the final round of the Penguin RC SimCAR Grand Am Championship. And, yep, 2 weeks. We'll see you then.